Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the holographic display floating above her desk, her coffee growing cold as the numbers refused to make sense. The Galactic Education Council's quarterly reports had arrived that morning, and every single metric was breaking in impossible ways. Human students across the galaxy were outperforming every other species by margins that defied statistical probability. Not just slightly better, exponentially better. The average human child was solving mathematical theorems that stumped graduate-level Centaurian scholars. Human teenagers were writing philosophical papers that made ancient Valerian philosophers weep with admiration. And the most disturbing part? This wasn't happening gradually. It had started exactly 6 months ago, overnight, as if someone had flipped a switch. Sarah's office door chimed, and Director Clax entered without waiting for permission. The insectoid being's compound eyes reflected the holographic data as his mandibles clicked nervously. Dr. Chen, we have a problem that extends far beyond academic curiosity. The human performance spike? Sarah minimized the display and gestured to a chair sized for Clax's species. I've been analyzing the data all morning. The statistical probability of this occurring naturally is essentially zero. It's worse than that. Clax's translator struggled with his rapid clicking. The FBI, your human law enforcement agency, has been investigating this phenomenon for weeks. They believe something has fundamentally altered human cognitive capacity, and they're treating it as a potential security threat. Sarah felt her stomach drop. If the FBI was involved, this wasn't just an educational anomaly. What kind of security threat? Think about it, Dr. Chen. Overnight, an entire species becomes significantly more intelligent. Not through natural evolution, not through technological enhancement, but through some unknown mechanism. Your government is asking the same questions we are. Who did this? Why? And what are their intentions? The holographic display materialized again as Sarah pulled up more detailed reports. Student after student, human after human, all showing the same impossible improvement. 7-year-olds were grasping concepts that should take decades to understand. University students were solving problems their professors couldn't even formulate properly. Has anyone contacted the affected students directly? Sarah asked, scrolling through test scores that seemed to climb higher with each passing day. That's where it gets interesting, Clax replied, his exoskeleton shifting as he leaned forward. The humans don't seem to realize anything has changed. When questioned, they express confusion about why everyone thinks they're performing unusually well. To them, this level of intellectual capacity feels completely normal. Sarah's blood ran cold. They don't remember being different? Apparently not. It's as if their enhanced cognitive abilities came with modified memories to match. They have no recollection of ever struggling with concepts they now find elementary. The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. Someone or something had systematically upgraded human intelligence across the galaxy and erased their memories of the change. The precision required for such an operation was beyond anything the Galactic Council had ever encountered. Who else knows about this? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The Council is keeping it classified for now, but word is spreading. The Centaurian Science Institute is demanding a full investigation. The Valerian Philosophy Guild is claiming it's impossible and accusing humans of cheating somehow. And the Krillian Military Command. Clax's mandibles stopped clicking entirely. They're viewing this as a prelude to invasion. Sarah's hand shook as she manipulated the holographic data, searching for patterns, for any clue that might explain what was happening. The Krillians think someone is weaponizing human intelligence? Consider the strategic implications. An entire species suddenly becomes vastly more intelligent, with no apparent downside or limitation. They could outthink our military strategies, our economic models, our diplomatic negotiations. If this was done intentionally, it's either the greatest gift in galactic history or the most sophisticated act of warfare we've ever seen. The data continued to scroll past them: test scores, academic achievements, research breakthroughs. Human students were submitting dissertations that would revolutionize entire fields of study. Children were asking questions that challenged fundamental assumptions about physics, philosophy, and galactic history. There's something else, Clax continued, his voice dropping to barely audible levels. The FBI isn't just investigating the phenomenon. They're investigating specific individuals who might have been involved in causing it.
What do you mean?
3 days ago, federal agents raided a quantum research facility in what you call Montana. The facility was supposedly conducting basic research into consciousness and memory, but the FBI found evidence of experiments that go far beyond anything in the public record.
Equipment that could theoretically manipulate neural pathways across vast distances. Research notes that reference cognitive elevation protocols and species-wide implementation.
Sarah's coffee mug slipped from her hand, clattering to the floor and splattering cold liquid across her shoes.
You're saying humans did this to themselves? We don't know. The facility was completely automated. No human staff on site.
Just machines running programs that seem to have been designed by someone with an intimate understanding of human neurology and quantum consciousness theory.
The FBI is treating it as if someone conducted an unauthorized experiment on the entire human species.
The room fell silent except for the quiet hum of the holographic projector. Sarah stared at the data, her mind racing through possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. If humans had somehow enhanced their own intelligence without collective consent, it raised questions about free will, identity, and what it meant to be human. If someone else had done it to them, it was the largest non-consensual experiment in recorded history.
What does the council want from me? Sarah finally asked.
You're our leading expert on human psychology and cognitive development. We need you to figure out what happened, how it happened, and, most importantly, whether it's reversible.
Reversible? Sarah looked up sharply. Why would we want to reverse it? Clax's compound eyes reflected the holographic data as he spoke.
Because we don't know what else might have been changed. Enhanced intelligence is just what we can measure.
What if their emotional responses have been altered? What if their capacity for empathy has been modified? What if whoever did this included other programming we haven't detected yet?
Sarah felt a chill run down her spine.
You think this might be the first phase of something larger? The FBI certainly does. And, frankly, Dr. Chen, so do I.
In 6 months, human children have gone from average galactic citizens to intellectual prodigies.
What happens in another 6 months? What happens when they reach adulthood with these capabilities?
What happens when they start asking questions about why they're the only species that experienced this change? The holographic display flickered as Sarah's hands moved through the data, searching for answers that seemed to retreat further with each discovery. Somewhere in the galaxy, every human was walking around with a fundamentally altered mind, unaware that they had ever been different. And, somewhere else, the entity responsible for this change was either celebrating the success of their experiment or preparing for the next phase of their plan.
I'll need access to everything, Sarah said quietly.
The FBI files, the research facility data, direct interviews with affected humans, and any surveillance data from the past 6 months.
You'll have it within the hour. But, Dr. Chen.
Clax paused at the door.
Be careful.
If someone has the power to alter the minds of an entire species without leaving a trace, they certainly have the power to alter yours as well. As the door closed behind the director, Sarah stared at her reflection in the darkened window. For the first time in her career, she found herself questioning not just what she was investigating, but whether her own thoughts were entirely her own. Agent Marcus Rivera stood in what remained of the Montana Quantum Research Facility, watching forensics teams catalog equipment that shouldn't have existed for another century. The place looked like someone had stripped technology from a dozen different alien civilizations and somehow made it all work together in perfect harmony.
Sir, you need to see this.
Agent Kim approached with a data tablet, her face pale despite 3 days of investigating impossible technology.
We've been analyzing the quantum resonance patterns from the main laboratory. The equipment here didn't just enhance human intelligence, it mapped every human neural network in the galaxy simultaneously.
Marcus took the tablet, scrolling through data that made his head spin.
All humans? Every single one?
Every human within a radius of approximately 50,000 light-years. The quantum entanglement field they generated was massive, precise, and completely undetectable until after the fact.
Whoever built this knew exactly how human consciousness works at the quantum level. Any idea how they got that information? Kim hesitated.
That's the disturbing part, sir. According to these logs, the neural mapping phase took place over 17 years. Someone has been secretly scanning human brains across the galaxy for nearly 2 decades, building a complete database of human cognitive architecture. Marcus felt his blood run cold. 17 years of secret surveillance, followed by a simultaneous cognitive enhancement of an entire species.
What about the memory modification? Any evidence of how they managed to make humans forget their previous intelligence levels? The memory work was even more sophisticated than the enhancement itself. They didn't just erase memories, they constructed new ones.
Every enhanced human has a complete set of false memories that make their new intelligence level feel natural and, historically, consistent. They remember always being this smart, remember their childhood education differently, remember academic achievements that never actually happened.
The implications were staggering.
Marcus walked deeper into the facility, past machines that hummed with energy signatures his equipment couldn't properly identify.
Any luck tracing who built this place?
The facility was constructed entirely by automated systems over a period of 5 years. The materials were sourced from 17 different star systems, all through legitimate commercial transactions that would have seemed completely normal individually. Someone planned this operation for decades and covered their tracks perfectly. Marcus paused at a massive cylindrical chamber in the center of the laboratory. According to the technical readouts, this was where the actual cognitive enhancement protocols had been generated and broadcast.
Have we identified any human involvement?
That's where things get really strange, sir. Every piece of evidence suggests this facility was built and operated without any human knowledge or involvement. But the technology shows an intimate understanding of human neurology that would be impossible for any known alien species to achieve.
Meaning? Meaning either there's a species out there that knows more about human consciousness than humans do, or...
Kim paused, clearly uncomfortable with her own conclusion.
Or what, Agent Kim?
Or this was built by humans from the future. Marcus stared at her, waiting for the punchline that never came.
You're serious?
Sir, the quantum temporal signatures in this facility show evidence of chronostatic manipulation. The technology here exists in a state of temporal flux that's consistent with advanced time travel theories. Someone from humanity's future came back and systematically enhanced their own species. Before Marcus could respond, his secure communicator buzzed with an urgent message from FBI headquarters. The message was brief but chilling: all enhanced humans are beginning to ask the same question simultaneously.
Containment may no longer be possible.
Marcus activated the device's response mode.
What question? The response came immediately: why are we the only species in the galaxy that doesn't remember evolving to our current intelligence level?
The facility suddenly felt very small and very vulnerable.
Marcus looked around at the alien technology, realizing that their investigation might have been anticipated.
Kim, we need to evacuate this facility immediately.
Sir? If enhanced humans are starting to question their situation, and if this technology came from the future, then our investigation timeline just accelerated dramatically.
Someone who can manipulate time and consciousness across the galaxy probably knows exactly what we're doing here. As if summoned by his words, the facility's main computer system activated without input, displaying a message in perfect English: investigation complete.
Thank you for your service. Please evacuate before temporal corrections begin.
Kim grabbed Marcus's arm. Sir, the quantum resonance patterns are spiking.
Something is about to happen.
Around them, the alien technology began to power down in sequence, each machine going silent as if following a predetermined shutdown protocol.
The message on the screen updated: enhancement phase successful. Memory integration complete. Begin phase 2. Phase 2?
Marcus ran toward the exit, Kim close behind him.
What the hell is phase 2?
The answer came not from the computer, but from Marcus's secure communicator as reports flooded in from around the galaxy. Enhanced humans weren't just asking questions about their intelligence, they were beginning to remember things that hadn't happened yet. Children were drawing pictures of technologies that wouldn't be invented for decades. Students were writing essays about historical events that were still in the future. "Sir," Kim panted as they reached the facility's exit.
If someone from the future enhanced human intelligence, and now humans are remembering future events, then the timeline is collapsing, Marcus finished.
Someone has been playing with cause and effect on a galactic scale. Outside the facility, Marcus's team was already packing their equipment with urgent efficiency. Agent Harrison approached with another tablet full of incoming reports. "Sir, we're getting readings from deep space observation stations. Something massive is approaching our galaxy."
"How massive?"
"Approximately the size of a small moon, but it's not showing up on conventional sensors. Only the quantum detection equipment is registering it, and, according to the readings, it's existed in multiple time periods simultaneously." Marcus looked back at the facility, which was now completely dark except for a single pulsing light in the quantum laboratory.
"Let me guess, it's heading straight for Earth."
"Actually, sir, it's heading for this facility.
Estimated arrival time, 6 hours.
The pieces were finally coming together in Marcus's mind, forming a picture that defied everything he thought he knew about reality. Someone from humanity's future had returned to enhance their own species' intelligence, knowing that this enhancement would eventually lead to the development of time travel technology. The approaching object was either the method of their arrival or the reason for their return. "Harrison, I want every piece of equipment, every data file, and every scrap of evidence removed from this facility within the hour.
And get me a direct line to the Galactic Education Council. Dr.
Shen needs to know that her investigation just became a race against time itself." As his team mobilized with desperate efficiency, Marcus stared at the facility that had contained technology beyond current human understanding. If their theory was correct, then, the enhancement of human intelligence wasn't just an isolated event, it was the first move in a temporal chess game that spanned centuries. "Sir," Kim called from the communications array.
"I've got Dr. Chan on the line. She says the enhanced humans aren't just remembering future events.
They're beginning to exhibit precognitive abilities.
They're predicting everything we're going to do before we do it."
Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the Montana air. "Tell her we may have found the source, but the source is about to find us."
"And, Kim?"
"Yes, sir?"
"Start running background checks on everyone involved in this investigation. If someone from the future has been manipulating events for decades, they might have been manipulating the investigators too."
The facility's final light went out as Marcus spoke, leaving them in darkness except for the stars above. Somewhere among those stars, an object that existed in multiple time periods was approaching with unknown intentions. And, across the galaxy, enhanced humans were beginning to understand that their newfound intelligence came with the ability to see beyond the present. The investigation had revealed the how and the where, but the why remained hidden in a future that was rapidly becoming the present. Dr. Sarah Chen materialized on the observation deck of the Galactic Council's Deep Space Monitoring Station, her emergency transport still crackling with residual energy. Through the massive viewing portal, she could see it, a structure that defied every law of physics she thought she understood. The object Agent Rivera had described as moon-sized was actually a crystalline lattice that seemed to exist in several dimensions simultaneously. Parts of it appeared solid and real, while other sections flickered in and out of visibility as if they couldn't decide which timeline to occupy. "Dr. Chen," Director Klax's voice was tight with barely controlled panic.
"Thank you for coming so quickly.
The situation has evolved."
"How long until it reaches the Montana facility?" Sarah asked, unable to look away from the impossible structure. "According to our calculations, approximately 90 minutes. But, Dr. Chen, that may not be our primary concern anymore." Sarah finally turned from the viewing portal to see Klax gesturing toward a holographic display showing human population centers across the galaxy. Each location was pulsing with soft blue light, the intensity growing stronger every few seconds. "What am I looking at?"
"Enhanced humans are synchronizing," Klax explained, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "Their neural patterns are beginning to align across impossible distances.
Whatever process began with their cognitive enhancement is entering a new phase."
A communication alert chimed, and Agent Rivera's image appeared in the hologram. Behind him, Sarah could see the frantic activity of FBI agents evacuating the Montana facility.
Dr. Chen, we've made a breakthrough. The facility's computer system provided us with files we weren't able to access before. We know why this is happening. Tell me, Sarah said, dreading the answer.
The enhanced humans aren't from our future, they're from an alternate timeline where humanity never developed beyond their original intelligence level. In that timeline, the galaxy was conquered by a species called the Devourers approximately 300 years from now.
Sarah felt her legs weaken. Conquered? Completely. Every intelligent species enslaved or exterminated.
But, somehow, a small group of humans from that timeline developed time travel technology in secret. They've been coming back to change history by enhancing human intelligence, hoping to create a timeline where humanity can defend itself.
Director Clax's exoskeleton shifted. Dr. Chen, if this is accurate, then, the approaching structure isn't an invasion force, it's a rescue mission.
The holographic display updated, showing new data streams from the enhanced humans.
Sarah watched in amazement as the neural synchronization patterns resolved into something resembling a vast, distributed consciousness. Billions of enhanced humans across the galaxy were beginning to think as a unified entity. Agent Rivera, Sarah called to the image. What else did the computer files reveal? The enhancement process was designed to be temporary. Once humans develop sufficient collective intelligence to defeat the Devourers, their individual intelligence levels will return to baseline.
The future humans are sacrificing their own timeline to save ours.
Sarah stared at the approaching crystalline structure, understanding dawning on her.
They're not just enhancing human intelligence, they're creating a galactic-scale superintelligence using human minds as processing nodes.
Correct, Rivera confirmed.
And, according to the files, the Devourers arrive in our galaxy in exactly 72 hours. This was always supposed to be a precisely timed operation. The viewing portal suddenly filled with blinding light as the crystalline structure began to unfold like a massive flower. Tendrils of energy reached out across space, connecting to every human population center in the galaxy. Sarah could feel something changing in her own mind, not her intelligence, but her awareness of other humans, their thoughts and knowledge becoming accessible at the edge of her consciousness.
Dr. Chen, Clax whispered, your species is becoming something unprecedented.
Sarah nodded, unable to speak as she felt her individual identity expanding to encompass the experiences of billions of other humans. She was a farmer on Kepler 442b, watching alien ships approach through enhanced eyes. She was a child in the Alpha Centauri system, understanding complex physics through an enhanced mind.
She was every human everywhere, all at once. And, through this vast network of consciousness, she could see them, dark shapes moving between the stars, approaching from the galactic rim.
The Devourers were massive, biological ships that consumed entire worlds, leaving nothing but empty space behind. In the original timeline, they had arrived to find a galaxy of separate, competing species, easily conquered and absorbed one by one. But this timeline was different. As the crystalline structure completed its connection to human consciousness across the galaxy, Sarah felt the collective intelligence of her species focusing on a single problem: how to stop an invasion that had already succeeded in another reality. The solution came not as a thought, but as a certainty that filled every enhanced human mind simultaneously. They would use the same temporal technology that had enhanced them to create a paradox. They would ensure that the Devourers never evolved in the first place. Agent Rivera, Sarah called out, her voice carrying the authority of billions of minds speaking in unison. The facility in Montana was never meant to be discovered by your investigation. You and your team were selected and guided to find it precisely when you did. Everything has been orchestrated to reach this moment. Rivera's image flickered as he absorbed this information. We were manipulated from the beginning? Not manipulated, recruited. The future humans needed investigators who would ask the right questions and reach the right conclusions within the required timeframe. Your FBI training made you ideal candidates for reverse engineering their plan. Director Clax stepped forward carefully. Dr. Chen, are you still, you? Sarah turned to him with a smile that contained the warmth of every human mother, the curiosity of every human child, and the determination of every human who had ever faced impossible odds. I'm more me than I've ever been.
we all are.
Individual identity enhanced by collective knowledge and purpose. The crystalline structure was now fully deployed, creating a temporal field that encompassed the entire galaxy. Through her enhanced perception, Sarah could see the timeline branches spreading out like a vast tree, the original timeline where the Devourers conquered everything, and the new timeline they were creating where the Devourers' evolution would be redirected toward peaceful coexistence rather than consumption. The enhancement was never supposed to be permanent, Sarah continued.
Once the temporal corrections are complete, human intelligence will return to baseline levels.
But the memories of this moment, this collective consciousness, will remain as dreams and inspiration. She turned back to the viewing portal as the first wave of temporal energy began rippling outward from the crystalline structure. Across the galaxy, the approaching Devourer ships were beginning to fade as the changes to their evolutionary history took effect.
Will we remember? Klax asked quietly.
You'll remember that humanity surprised you, Sarah replied. You'll remember that when faced with an impossible threat, they found an impossible solution. And you'll remember that sometimes the most extraordinary achievements require the temporary sacrifice of individual identity for collective purpose. The temporal wave reached their position, and Sarah felt herself beginning to separate from the vast network of human consciousness. Around the galaxy, billions of enhanced humans were experiencing the same gentle disconnection as their individual intelligence levels began to return to their original baselines. But the job was done. The Devourers had been redirected toward peaceful evolution millennia ago. The invasion that had conquered the galaxy in another timeline would never occur. As her enhanced awareness faded, Sarah held on to one final, perfect moment of clarity, the knowledge that humanity had not only saved themselves, but had saved every species in the galaxy, including species that wouldn't evolve for millions of years. They had rewritten history itself to ensure that sentient life could flourish without fear of extinction.
Dr. Chen? Klax's voice seemed to come from very far away. Are you all right? Sarah blinked, her individual consciousness fully restored.
The crystalline structure was gone, leaving only empty space where it had been. The enhanced humans across the galaxy were returning to their normal lives, confused but unharmed, carrying only vague dreams of having been part of something magnificent. I think, Sarah said slowly, I need to write a very strange report for the Galactic Education Council.
About what? Klax asked.
The investigation showed that human academic performance returned to normal levels approximately 6 hours ago.
There's no longer any evidence that the enhancement ever occurred. Sarah smiled, understanding finally why the future humans had been so thorough in covering their tracks.
I suppose I'll be writing about the most successful covert operation in galactic history, one so successful that it erased all evidence of its own existence. She looked out at the stars, knowing that somewhere among them, civilizations were developing and thriving in a timeline where an ancient threat had been neutralized before it could begin. The enhanced humans had not just saved the galaxy, they had done it so completely that no one would ever know they needed saving. And, perhaps, Sarah thought, that was the most human thing of all, to solve an impossible problem and, then, quietly go back to their normal lives, asking for no recognition, leaving only dreams and the continued existence of free will across the galaxy as proof of what they had accomplished. The FBI files would be sealed and forgotten. The Galactic Council would close the investigation with no conclusions. And humanity would continue to surprise the galaxy, not through enhanced intelligence, but through the simple, extraordinary fact of being human.